Well, the good Lord gave me the soul of an artist. Unfortunately, he gave me the hands and dexterity of a gorilla. So as much as I envy artists who can draw beautifully from life, I find I need to come up with a much better way. So I did. I've just recently started to play around with Escape Emotions Rebelle 4, the digital paint program, and just love it. But I recently discovered one feature that I particularly like that I want to bring your attention to, and that is the Stencil Tool. Now, most people will be using it for creating stencils for graphic elements and patterns and the like. I find it is perfect for creating charcoal portrait sketches. If you aren't familiar with the Stencil Tool, you access it by going to the Windows menu option, and you'll see down here an option called Stencils. And if you click on the down arrow, you'll see a lot of the pre-made stencils. Let's just start out and take one here of just a vase, and you can see when it shows up as a red background, and the white and anything in white will be the area that is affected, and anything in red will be like a masking layer. You also have the controls up here. This will control where it's positioned on the canvas. This can control the size of the image, and this controls rotation, so you can rotate it left, right, and then the features here, you can invert it so that now the background is affected and anything in the middle will not be affected, or you can lock it or unlock it as to where it is, and also show the border or flip it horizontally or vertical. So let's go back and bring it back here to its normal state, and we can just pick a color, and we could take whatever brush here, pastel, and just fill in. And then to see it, we click on the little icon here, and now you can see that wherever we made strokes with the pastel, on the unmasked area, it fills it in. Before I go into the operations using the stencil in Rebelle 4, I just want to go over some of the intermediate steps that I used. This was my starting image, which is a digital painting I did of a young model. I then converted it to black and white and emphasized mainly the mid-tones in this rendering and very low contrast. Next, I created a much higher key rendition of this, emphasizing mainly the dark values with much more contrast to it. And these will be the foundations for the stencils that I'll create. Our first operation will be to create stencils from the two images that we just created. To do that, we go to the stencil panel, and on the right hand corner, click there, and you can see Create Stencil from Image File. So we'll go ahead and pick that, and we'll start out with just the reduced one and create that stencil, and then we'll go ahead and create our second stencil from more the mid-tone values. So now we have our two stencils created. To start our drawing, I've selected a canvas here using the CP3 shrunk paper. I could also use a cold press aquareller or any of the others. And I want just a white color for my background. And our texture scale I'm going to keep maybe about 65%. I can always reduce that, but I think that'll work okay. Next, I'm just going to go ahead and choose the dark values and just click there, and you can see it immediately centers it on the screen. I don't really need to do any further repositioning at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my tablet now. And in this case, I've chose the charcoal 6 brush and black color. And I'm just going to go ahead and just start drawing. Now the nice thing about this technique is because of the masking, it will only fill in the areas where it's unmasked. Now if I want increased pressure, I can do that, get a little bit darker value. And so now, if I want to see what the drawing looks like, there's a little icon here that toggles on and off the stencil. The thing I should warn you about is once you toggle it off, it no longer is masked. So if I come in here and make a stroke, it comes into the masked area. So if you want to keep drawing, make sure you keep the stencil on, and we'll go ahead and just kind of draw away. And I'm not really paying much attention to being very precise here. And this is the result already of just using the dark values. So now I'm going to remove this stencil and come over here and choose the midtone values and just touch it. And you can see it aligns perfectly with the previous ones. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the same with this, using a little bit lighter stroke, maybe a bit lower opacity overall. And just change the opacity of the drawing slightly. And you can see now I've brought in some of the mid values here. Ordinarily I would have done this on a different layer, or I could control the opacities separately. And we can zoom in on this and you can see how beautiful that's rendered as a charcoal drawing.